Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered. I'm Russell Ditzworth, joined as always by Corinne Shalvoy. And we're coming today, breaking up our recent mini-series, and we're coming at you with a Fireroad episode. Corinne has just finished the Desert Rats K, and like we've done before for Javelina, and like we've done for some of my races, we are going to recap the Desert Rats 100K, get some of Corinne's thoughts going into the race, talk a little bit about how the race went and what this might lead to coming up and what this means for the rest of the season. So, Corinne, thanks for doing this. I enjoy these episodes, and I know that it's not always easy to talk about yourself. So, I'm going to ask the questions here, and you can just be the person being interviewed.
No, it's super fun to do. It's a great way to like process the race too. And I think sometimes, you can do a write-up, which I am going to write something on the Women Can Substack as well. And I think writing serves its own purpose. But sometimes some of the nuance and some of the ways that you actually want to describe what went on during a race are really best done in kind of a verbal format. So I think this is great. And I appreciate you asking me questions.
Yeah, so the Castle Rock Run Club was following this race very closely. There is a GroupMe page where there were numerous comments about where Corinne was placement-wise, how things were going in the race. We were getting some updates from Graham, and that's one of the things that I wanted to. Well, first of all, I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase here. You had an amazing race.
Oh,
You
thanks.
ran. It was a 100K race, Desert Rats 100K in Fruita, Colorado,
Mhm.
part of the UTMB series here in the United States, one of the few races that is associated with UTMB. I had it as 102.3K, so I'm calling it the heavy 100K.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, it was definitely heavy, 64 and a half miles, and those last 4 and a half, woo, okay, we'll talk about it.
and so I had you for 10 hours and 20 minutes for third place and getting to hold up. And I don't know if you have it with you, your UTMB direct entry token.
They
On
don't let you keep it.
They don't let you keep it. That is so disappointing.
It is disappointing, but no, they do not let you keep it, but I did hold it up, so I have photo proof.
That's amazing. And it seemed like it was a very interesting day, maybe interesting from a weather perspective. But one of the most interesting things is usually Graham is out there with you at these races, or you're out with Graham when he races. And this time I do want to shout out Graham. Graham was at home winning a local race. So he
Yep,
won the inaugural Aravaipa Buffalo Run. I think it's a 20
Mountain
miler, might be
Ridge
20
something.
Buffalo Ridge Run.
Yeah, like Mountain Ridge, Mountain Run.
It was an existing race that is now being taken over for the first time
Yeah.
by Aravaipa, but Graham had been spending a lot of time on the ground training on the course. And so congratulations to Graham for locking up a dub there on the
Yeah.
home course while you were
Yeah,
out
babe.
in Fruita.
Yeah, he absolutely rocked it. Mountain Ridge 21 Mile is what it's called, and it's like the start line is like a mile and a half from our house on trails that he'd been practicing on. Luke J has the course record, really stout time. He was aiming to try to get as close to that as possible. He got within 4 minutes of it, and he battled it out. And actually, funny story, I talked to Graham 2 or 3 times during my race, and I called him. And the first thing I would say is, I'm fine, because usually when we call each other during a race, it's not a good thing. That being said, I said, I'm fine. But I wanted to know I had a couple questions for him about where other people were in the field. And like, I knew he could look that up. And I didn't want to actually bother like my crew and pacers, or my crew, my mom and dad, with those questions. And then I asked him, how was your race? And he goes, I won that shit. I was like, yes. So it was a good motivation for me during my race as well, to hear that he'd done so well.
Well, last thing on Graham's race, and then we can move on. But the live tracker had Graham in fifth place.
Mm.
But I looked at his Strava, and his Strava, like the elapsed time was such that it would have been faster than the what was apparently the winner. And
Mhm.
I texted him, I was like, something is not jiving here. Please tell me that you got the dub. And he's like, oh, I just got back to this. Yes, we locked it in. So
Yep.
that was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
We
right.
both
So
had tracker issues during our races.
yeah, tracker issues during the races. It's a common thing. Don't freak out if the tracker's wrong. Just wait. It might be okay.
Exactly.
So who was out there supporting you? You mentioned your parents were out there.
Yeah. So the races in Fruita, Colorado, which is literally like 10-15 minutes north of Grand Junction. Grand Junction, Colorado, Southwest Colorado. It was like the big city to us growing up. So growing up in Ouray, if you took the big long trip 2 hours north, you would get to Grand Junction. And that is where the Mesa Mall was. It was the closest mall to us, and it was like this mecca of commerce and restaurants like Olive Garden and Red Lobster, and it's where you went to have the state track meet and where you went to basketball camp in the summer, and it was like the big city. So growing up, it was the big city we would venture to every now and then. Now it's actually like it's interesting because I didn't realize that these really, really incredible trails are all right there. I'd never run on these trails before. But Fruita, yeah, 2 hours, 15 minutes north of Ouray. So my parents are based in Ouray, so they were able to drive up easily to meet me. And then I brought Stowe and Dash down to the race with me, and they were also going to cruise. So they were going to hang out with the parents, their grandparents, my parents. And that was my crew: Stowe, Dash, my mom, my dad, and my sister Valerie.
Okay, awesome. I do think that your crews end up getting a warped perception of how long they have to be out there for races since you finish them so quickly. They're going to be like, "Wait a second, you're doing 100K? This takes all day. Like, why is it 20?"
Well, so this is funny too, is because we were doing prep the night before, and I'm telling my dad, like, I'm going to try to be done by 3 p.m. And he's like, is this 100K or 100 mile? And I was like, it's 100K. And he's like, oh, I thought this was 100 mile. I was expecting like 15 or 16 hours. And I was like, Dad, you got spoiled. Don't you remember Leadville, which was way, way, way longer? He's like, oh, this is gonna be easy. We got this. Like, we got this covered. He thought I was doing 100 miler. So no, and they actually only got to see me twice during the race because there is a crewable aid station early on. There's Rustlers 1 and 2, and that aid station is miles 6.5 and 9.5. And as I thought about it more, I'm like, you guys don't need to go take a shuttle to this wrestler's aid station to meet me at mile 10-ish of this race to just hand me 2 bottles. I'm like, you don't need to get up that early. Don't even worry about it. So the first time I saw them was around the 50K mark, or mile 32 or so.
Okay, so that'd be the Rabbit Valley.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was kind of flying solo, drove out there solo in the morning. I got up, the race started at 5 a.m., got up at 3:30, so I could leave about 4:15 because I had about a 20-minute drive. And then you had to park about quarter to a half mile away from the start line and run and walk up. And I was planning on just jogging up as my kind of warm up. So I got up super early and went there myself, and then just had on me my vest pretty much packed for the first 50K, other than refilling bottles.
That's amazing. And I want to get into some of those early miles and then obviously during the race, but let's back up just a little bit and
Yeah.
talk about some of the motivations to sign up. First of all, for Desert Rats 100K, how this fits into your season and kind of how your training went going in, because you had some really great training coming into this. And I want to hear kind of about what that was like and kind of where your mindset was at.
Sure. So I think to start with, the plan for why I did Desert Rats was to potentially qualify me for a race at the UTMB Finals in Chamonix. And I kind of decided this year, when I knew I didn't get into Western in the lottery, that I wanted to go for a hard rock qualifier. I really, really loved running CCC back in 2022. That was an amazing experience for me. I loved the trails. And I think, having run Ouray 50 this last year, I kind of leaned into my love for climbing a little bit more than I ever have, and using poles and being out in the mountains for a long time. And it gave me a little more confidence that I could do something really, really long. So I kind of started thinking, well, maybe I should go do UTMB the full loop and actually, use that as a hard rock qualifier, because I also want to start on that journey. But I was like, well, first I'd have to figure out how to get in. And everyone knows it's a very complex thing that's ever changing to get into the UTMB Mont Blanc races. There's stones, there's qualifiers, there's majors, there's all kinds of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But what
There's
I knew is that,
indexes.
yes, there's performance indexes and scores. And what I knew is that um, I, I knew that Desert Rats was obviously like the easiest one to get to, because there, as you mentioned, there's only a couple of UTMB races in the US, and this is 4 hours away. Like, this is driving distance. It's not a major. So a major UTMB race, the one for North America, each country, I believe, has, or
Each
each region
continent
has a
has a major.
continent. Oh, has a major. Okay. So the major for North America was last year was Big Bear, right? Or
Kodiak.
what's it called? Kodiak.
Yeah.
Kodiak
Used
in
to be Canyons years ago, and they changed it to
yes.
Kodiak last year.
Correct. Yeah, which is out in California. And it is, again, the major. And the major means that you can get double the stones if you complete the race. It also means that instead of the top 3 automatically qualifying for something else or the finals, the top 10 qualify overall. And then the top 3 age groupers qualify. There's just a lot more. It's just a lot easier to potentially auto qualify. But it's at the end of the year. So if I was going to try to run this year at UTMB Mont Blanc, which is in August, I needed to do something beforehand. Okay, so normally you need to do something before the end of the year, because historically you have to get your qualifier before December something in order to put in and say, I want to do UTMB Mont Blanc. Well, this past year they said, if you are an elite, meaning you have a UTMB index of XYZ for men, XYZ for women, you can apply for an extension. Okay. So there's multiple steps to this. You can apply for an extension to get your qualifier before June instead of before December of that year to run that year's race. Okay, so this was the first step, is like, I need to see if I can get an extension. Shout out to Travis Longcar. The only reason that I knew that I was even eligible to get an extension or apply for an extension is because Travis Longcar, chief data officer at Free Trail Fantasy and good friend, messaged me and told me, hey, Corinne, did you know that your 100-mile index, now you have different indexes on UTMB. You have a 50K, a 100K, a 100-mile, and I think a 20K.
Yep.
So he messaged me and said, did you know that your 100-mile index is good enough for you to apply for this extension? And I was like, what? And I looked up my index and I'm like, why would that be the case? Like, I've run 200 milers. One of them was almost a golden hour finish. The other one was really, really good, but I had no idea that it was going to result in having this high of a score. So what allowed me to request an extension for the qualification window was the fact that I ran Javelina 100-mile very well, and I got a index score on the UTMB index of like 720 or something like that.
So
So
that high index allowed you to apply for an extension. And then what did you have to do within that extension period in order to qualify for the 2026 finals, any
yeah,
distance?
good question. Okay, so then I emailed the elites at UTMB and asked them, hey, can I get an extension to get my qualifier here? And I have to tell them where I'm going to get my qualifier. So I said, here's my plan. I'd like to apply for the extension. And then what I would love to do is run Desert Rats 100K in April of next year as my potential qualifier. So they said, ooh, you're on the borderline and your 100K index is actually not good enough. And I said, yes, but my 100-mile index is good enough. And they looked at that and they said, that's true. And it does say in our thing that if your index for any distance is above this, so they granted it to me. So I had to go a little bit back and forth. So I had the extension, and then I said, I'm going to do desert rats. They're like, okay, please sign up for desert rats as soon as possible. Okay, I'll go sign up for desert rats. I go to sign up and it's sold out. I said, hey, desert rats is sold out. Can you guys help me get into desert rats? Because I would like to run it. I got a response, yes, we can get you into desert rats. However, please get your UTMB index up higher. That's
Okay.
what they said. They said, please focus on increasing your UTMB index. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm trying to do here. It was kind of funny. But anyway, so that's how I got into the race. Okay, so then I'm in the race, and what I understood I needed to do in the race in order to auto qualify was get top 3 placement.
Okay.
Now, I also wondered if I could get, because some of the language says you can also achieve a certain index score,
Right.
even if you're not top 3. And so I emailed them ahead of time because I'm like, I want to know what I need to do here, you know? So I asked him that question. I said, you know, is it this or that? Do I need to get top 3 and or get an index score of X, you know, a number? And what is that number? They basically said, well, we can't predict what the number is. Like, it all depends on the competition. It depends on the times that are run and all of that. So once I heard that, I knew that pretty much I needed to get top 3. Like,
Wow.
that was going to be my thing. And then I also was thinking to myself, well, what if I won my age group? Would that auto qualify me? And I have since learned that if I had won my age group, which I did not, because Heather Jackson won our age group, she's 40 to 40 years old, and she won
And
the
also
race
won the race.
and also won the race, that if I had one age group, I would have auto qualified for CCC, but I would not have been able to request going up or down in distance, and therefore I would not be able to run UTMB if I wanted to. So there's a lot of complexity to this, but everything that I knew was that I can't run a 100 miler to qualify directly for the distance. So I would run 100K at Desert Rats, try to get top 3. If I got top 3, I could potentially request and say, hey, I would like to go up in distance at UTMB Mont Blanc to run UTMB. And that's, I guess, still to be determined, because I'm not sure that I actually do want to run the full loop, but we'll figure that out in time.
Well, and so what you were holding up was a little placard that said CCC direct entry. And so
Yeah.
what we're to understand from that normally would be that would be a direct entry to CCC for 2027. Normally,
Normally.
without this extension discussion.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. But if
Cool.
you if you had requested an extension, you could use it for this year. And I did get an email this morning, said that I was qualified, said if you'd like to exercise your auto qualification, please let us know. If you exercise it this year, it is not valid for next year.
So it's an
And
either
then
or. You can use
either
this
or.
for one or the other, is what they're telling you.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I haven't even looked into whether or not I could use it for next year, but because I had told them I want to use it this year, I think they're kind of holding me to that. And when I got up on the podium with Heather, I said to her, hey, Heather, congrats again. And, you know, are you doing, which distance are you doing? And she's like, UTMB. I already told them I want to do UTMB. So
So she's
she's,
doing kind of the same thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We were on the same path there. So yeah, got the qualifier. And it was a reason that a lot of people were running Desert Rats, is that auto qualifier, because if you get top 3 in the 50K, you also could potentially petition to go up a distance and run CCC, or you could run OCC, which is the 50K distance at the finals. And talk to someone like Preston Cates, who I had been at a Solomon camp with many years back, saw him there again. He was excited because he got 3rd place in the 50K. I said, are you going to go do CCC? He said, we'll see, maybe, you know, kind of depends. But yeah, that was the reason that he ran the races, to maybe have that option.
Oh, that's amazing. And just from a timing perspective, this is a good time of year for that to be a potential.
Mm-hmm.
This and Canyons feels like it's like similar in terms of like, yeah, it's an April race for a late August, finals. it's great that UTMB is trying to find a way for the elites to be able to utilize those to qualify in season for events that they may not be qualified for.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I feel like there's a lot of information on UTMB's site, and I still didn't quite understand as much as you were able to describe right there.
Yeah, and I think that if you have questions about it, like I would say go to the elite runners tab on UTMB and then also just email their elite services if you have questions about it. Like that's probably the best way. They were, responsive with me and got back to me pretty timely, and so I think yeah, if you have questions, like just you need to reach out, but the it is like many clicks away from you have to go through like 4 or 5 clicks to get to a point where you see all of the like details of what the index scores you need to have are in order to qualify for certain things. So still convoluted, but they're trying, and I think I'm navigating it okay.
Okay, so back to the race. You had mentioned that you called Graham to kind of figure out where some competitors were. Going into the race, I saw both Heather Jackson's name, your name, and Sandy Nypaver's name. So, were you aware of any other women that were in the field that were likely to be competitive? And what were you doing at this 5 a.m. start? Were you trying to figure out where they were so you could kind of keep tabs? Like, talk a little bit about that just going into the race.
Yeah, so I knew there was a potentially a Japanese woman there who I didn't know what she was gonna look like, but she was listed on the elites page on Desert Rats on the elite start list. It just listed the top 3 men and women, and she was actually listed as second. It was Heather, her, and then myself, and Megan Roach, my coach of 8 plus years now. I did have a call with her, and she mentioned this woman as well, so I was kind of on the lookout for someone who might, you know, look like they were a Japanese athlete. She appeared to be unsponsored too, but she had a pretty high index. So wasn't looking for a specific kit. I know Sandy Nypaver, amazing athlete, really good, really strong, really good in the mountains. So I knew she was likely going to be a factor. And then beyond that, there were a couple of random ballers that were absolutely in the mix that I did not know, but one of them ended up nailing second place, running really, really well. And Graham told me afterwards he started looking her up, and she was like a collegiate soccer player. This was her first K. So shout out to her. I think her name
It's
is
Tay Cabot.
Tay. Tay. Yeah, just absolutely crushed it. So interestingly, our family had had some illness for the last couple weeks, this nasty congestion slash sore throat, kind of like a cold. Didn't know if it was COVID variant. I don't know what it was or still is. And a couple weeks ago, Graham got sick, and he's like, "Man, I just have this congestion. It's annoying, and I don't feel too bad, but it's just hanging on." It was hanging on for a week. Then Stowe got sick, my 14-year-old. Like, oh man, dang. And then I still was healthy, and then, like 2 days before we left, Dash got sick, the 11-year-old. And I'm like, wow, I must have a really good immune system because I have not caught this thing yet. And I don't think I'm going to catch it. And then we decided to take Dash, even though he was sick, because he really, really wanted to go. I'm like, I don't care. Like, this is about being with the family, like having a fun experience. I don't really care if he gets me sick. Well, I think he did get me sick because Friday morning I woke up with a sore throat, and I was like, really? After I survived
I
it for two
know.
weeks, I'm going to get sick now. Oh, but such is life. So then I was thinking to myself, man, not, this could be bad because I don't know if I'm going to get worse. And I just don't feel amazing right now. On my shakeout run, I felt really crappy. I called Graham. I'm like, I did not feel good. Then I just told myself, I've had many, many shakeout runs where I do not feel good, and I still have an okay race. And so I tried not to judge it too much. I just did whatever I could to rest that day and did a lot of like tea and honey and hot water and nasal saline spray and all kinds of stuff like that. And I definitely think I have a cold because I still have a cold, but I was able to run through it, and it didn't become too much of a factor. So I have another funny story about that. I don't know if you want me to tell you now, but it's kind of
Yeah, jump in. Go for it.
well, okay. So the funny thing is, we're at the expo, and I saw my friend, so Knack Nutrition, NAAK, and Never Second are both at the expo. And so I got to say hi to those guys. But the woman who did the Z design for Women Can, her name is Amon, or Lindsay Amon, and she goes by Z. She was there working with NAC. So I was like, hey, Lindsay, hey, Z, what's going on? So hanging out with her, talking to her, she's like, have you tried our new gels? I'm like, no, I don't know about NAC. But I tried some different stuff. And she's like, so we have this interesting one, and I'd like to get your take on it. And it is a menthol gel. And I was like, interesting. So I was like, have you ever tried Santa Madre gels? Because they have a very strong aftertaste of like a cooling sensation. I don't know if it's exactly menthol, but they're minty kind of. And I'm like, they're too strong for me, but I'll try it. So she gives me a little bit. And she's like, I'm curious what you think, because I kind of think they taste like toothpaste. So I eat it, and it does taste a little bit like a combination of like one of those like wintergreen lifesaver mints and toothpaste and mouthwash a little bit. And it's a little bit gelatinous, like it's not super thin. But I'm like, you know what? This kind of feels good on my throat because I have a cold right now. I'm like, can I take a couple of these? And she's like, sure, take a couple. So I took 3 of these. I ate 2 of them during the race. And I actually think that they were kind of helpful. I look on the bottom and it says it has Courtney Dauwalter's signature on it. And I'm like, this makes total sense. This is Courtney's way of brushing her teeth without brushing her teeth. Like, that is what it's like. It's this sensation. And so I'm like, this is kind of brilliant. And it has a use, like, there is a use case for it, I think, in certain ways. Maybe it resets your palate a little bit too. Like, but it ended up working out for me. So I absolutely did something brand new on race day as well.
Did you space them out, or when did you
Yeah.
take them?
Yeah. Spaced them out. Yeah. Yeah. I took one every like probably 3 hours.
Okay, cool. So you start the race, it's in the dark. Do you have any idea where
Yeah.
any of the other women are? Because when we
Yeah.
saw the first indication of where you were at the first aid station, it was like 44th place, 8th woman. And I'm
Oh,
like,
I was
"Oh my
8th. Okay.
gosh,
Yeah.
this thing went out
Yeah.
hot."
Uh-huh. So, okay. Yes, I did know kind of generally where I was. This is another interesting thing that they did. They had 2 wave starts. They had the elite men start, and then they had the elite women start at 2 minutes after the hour.
Oh,
Now, they said if you are an elite man, meaning if you think you are going to get top 50 in this race in the
oh,
men's side, top 50, go
okay.
up to the front. Okay. And then 2 minutes later, we're going to start the women, and we're going to have a full elite women start. Kind of interesting concept. Actually had somebody ask me about that during the race. A guy was like, what do you think of that start? Like, what do you think of how UTMB did the start? And it kind of made me ponder. I didn't really form an opinion about it beforehand, but in retrospect, the elite women ended up having to pass quite a few of those people. And I mean, just to give you an example, the top 3 of us, the top 3 women were in the top 12 overall. So there was 35 men that we kind of, at some point ended up moving ahead of, or having to move ahead of, that were a couple minutes in front of us. So anyways, we went off, and thanks to Adam Dill, he had given me a tip that after about a mile on the road, you two get onto some single track and it becomes a little bit congested. So he was like, you might want to go out a little bit fast. So I planned to do that and then back off, because knowing I had a cold, I didn't really want to go out too hot because I just wasn't sure how I was going to feel. I was like, I think I'm going to want to try to be more conservative and just kind of see how it's going. So we took off, and I ran with Heather, talked to Heather a little bit. There was a woman in front of us who was off the front, who I don't know what happened to her. She must have either dropped way back or ended up dropping out, because she definitely wasn't the person who got second. But she was out front. And then Heather, myself, and probably, like you said, like 5 or 6 other women were all kind of right there together.
Gotcha.
And then as we started to go up this technical section in the dark, I got kind of stuck behind, but I was like, that's okay. Just hang out here. And then if it ever got a little bit to where I was like, this is not a pace I want to be going, then I tried to kind of hop around. And most of the guys were really like, they stepped aside. They were really accommodating it. and nice about it. I didn't know exactly what place I was in, but I also could not see super well because I put the secondary battery and not the first battery in my headlamp, which was not fully charged, and it started to go out a little bit like immediately. So I was on like a dimmer setting and trying not to trip and fall, and eventually took out my phone and used the phone light as a second light on the ground during that technical section. I had no idea how technical it was. It was super rocky, very, very windy, big rocks. Had to pay attention to your footing for the first, like, probably mile 2 to 4.
And everyone's
So,
doing that in the dark.
yeah, and it was harder when you were going downhill, but it did become a little bit of a conga line, and I just kinda tried to, like, chill out and be patient and not fall, which I almost went down about 4 times, but I never actually fell, so that was a huge success as well.
So you mentioned calling Graham to like get kind of an indication on where competition was. So after this initial thing goes through, you're kind of going your pace. When was the first time you called Graham? When were you first interested in like, where am I at and how close is competition front and back?
Yeah.
Because the thing I want to get to eventually is how do you have the willpower and the desire to continue pushing if wherever you were in the field and like I kind of want to hit the podium or I kind of then I don't know what the motivation is to finish otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there was a background motivation to just finish, even if I wasn't going to be where I wanted to be, because this is also a Western States qualifier, and
Okay.
I need to
Perfect.
get that done. So that, on top of the fact that I DNF Black Canyon 100K at the 50K mark a couple months ago, were all motivating factors. Like, I did not want that to happen again. And so I was like, A goal is win the race. B goal is top 3, C goal is finish. So
Okay, cool.
those were my goals.
But strong motivations in the C category still. It wasn't going to drop off
Yeah.
a cliff beyond that. Okay.
And also, like, not a performance thing, but have a good attitude during the whole race was also a big goal of mine, and I do think I succeeded in that, which I'm proud of because I didn't know that was going to happen, especially if I had felt really yucky, and that would have been hard. And so, anyways, those were kind of the goals. So, to answer your question about Graham, I didn't call him until actually about the first time I called him was a couple miles before I saw my crew at 32. So I didn't call him until like mile 30. And that time I actually didn't even ask him. I think I did end up asking him, but it wasn't a priority. The reason I called him is I said, my hamstrings are super tight. They are um, kind of on fire. I don't know if they're going to hold out. Like, I don't know if my fitness is going to allow me to actually run the way I want to for the rest of this. And I was like, I need, when I get to, no, okay, so I take it back. This was before I saw my crew at 52. So I
Okay.
didn't call him until I saw my crew at 52. And I
Mile
told him
50.
that mile 52. So this was second time through Olympic Valley or whatever. And my hamstrings are like kind of on fire. I need you to call my parents and tell them that when I get in there, they need to massage my legs really well, because I got to figure this out, because I don't know if my legs are going to hold up. And so during that call, I also asked him how his race went. Yay. He's like, I won. And then I also said, hey, am I in fourth? Because at that point, I kind of thought I knew where I was, because I passed one or two people and I was thinking about who was in front of me. That woman I didn't know, Heather, Sandy, and maybe one other person. I'm like, am I in fourth or fifth or what? And he looked and he's like, the tracker's kind of messed up, but I think you are. And so I kind of was like, oh, I generally know. And I spent a lot of time during those middle miles thinking to myself, like, trying to get that motivation that you're saying, like, what if I don't podium today? If it doesn't happen, like, what am I going to do? And why do I want to keep going? And I thought about it a lot. And then I was also coming up with this grand plan in my head that if I got like fourth, fifth, or sixth, I was going to maybe think about calling up Finn and asking him if I could run the what's it called, his race, the Twisted Fork 68K. And
Yeah.
I was like, maybe if I go run Twisted Fork 68K, I could get a bear tag and I could do the bear 100 as my backup plan for a hard rock qualifier. So I'm like thinking about that in my own head. Um, but I kind of was at peace with, if it doesn't happen,
You're
doesn't
doing
happen.
the best you can. Like, you can't control where other people are.
And I also knew generally I was on my splits. So
Yeah.
I had created splits for a 10-hour finish, which I thought would do the trick for top three. Um, I thought that, and I'm talking with Megan too. Megan thought I could run a 9:45, which I think was within reach for me. I think a sub 10-hour was definitely in reach. Um, but it's not what happened. And whether that's for factors like my feet, my hamstrings, early miles, taking it more conservative, for most of the race until the very, very end, I was very much on my splits. So I was like, this is what I am planning to do. I'm running well. And if other people are running better than me, then they're running better. And if they can hold it, then good for them. There's a chance one or two might come back. And I just got to stick with it and stay consistent. And I just kept telling myself that the whole time of like, just steady, just even. No heroic miles, no super slow miles. You just got to keep moving at as consistent of a pace as you possibly can. And so I saw my crew first at 30. So that was really great. And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be like celebration point where I'm not dropping out. I'm going on from here.
Yes.
And I get to see everybody, and they were there, and it was super fun. We did a really good, quick aid station transition. They actually gave me a new vest, and I had asked at the check-in if I could do this. I said, if I have duplicates of all my required gear, can I just put a second vest on? Because I had no tracker like you do at UTMB. And they're like, that's fine as long as you have everything you're supposed to have. So I had two vests. I knew I could just swap out a vest, put a new one on. I'd still have everything I needed in my second vest. And I actually had my heavier waterproof jacket in my second vest, which I did on purpose because I knew there was a chance of thunderstorms, and that absolutely happened. So anyways, it was a great crew transition. It was so fun. I came in and people were yelling my name. I was like, I knew some people, I didn't know some people. I was like, this is so cool. And then I saw Devin Yanko. She was like, I was thinking maybe she was Corinne Sandy. In reality, she was Corinne Heather. But I was like, hey, how's it going? And it was really cool. It felt very like a very grassroots, just Colorado smallish
Yeah.
ultra with a lot of people that would to be there. And so saw my parents, and everybody was good. And my sister said, are you breathing okay? Is your throat okay? And my mom looked at my sister and said, stop asking her that. It was hilarious. But my parents have done this enough, and the boys, that they've got it dialed. Like, they were
Yeah.
great. They had everything ready for me, and it was super fun. So it was a big boost
F1
to see
pit
them.
crew right there, the family pit crew.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a big boost to see them. And then I took off and knew that I was going to see them again in about 20 miles.
That's amazing. Okay. So you're going to see them again in 20 miles. So that's 50K to 50 mile.
Mhm.
Now, here's something that I have a question about. Your Strava was not, you didn't have a whole lot of information in your Strava. You put in pictures, which was really cool. But what I liked was the only thing in the caption was mission accomplished.
Mhm.
So did mission accomplished refer to like everything that you just talked about in terms of the finish and Western States qualifier and P3, so the podium? What did mission accomplished refer to?
Ooh, good question, Russ. I mean, I think when I wrote it, it really was referring to getting the auto qualifier
Okay.
for UTMB is what I mostly meant by that. But I do think it's multifaceted. I mean, mission accomplished, completing the full distance, staying steady and staying in it mentally all day. So there was a pretty gnarly storm. And after I left, like, we had amazing weather. And historically, this race can be very hot. And I knew, the year Lottie Brinks, she ran a 9:25 on this course. It's so fast. It's very good. I also will say that I was just enjoying the course. Like, I didn't see any of this course beforehand. So I had no idea what to expect. And I think sometimes that's really good in a race setting to know what is ahead of you, especially if you're trying to improve a time or you've done it before and you're just like, in ways I think it's really good. And every now and then I think it's kind of nice to just go with it. And you don't really and just whatever it is in front of you is in front of you, and you're experiencing it for the first time. Um, and I was really, really enjoying the course. There were some very, very beautiful, super runnable things you dream about, single track, kind of buttery on on the rim of the Colorado River. It was gorgeous. I really, really liked the course. I did see the girl that got fifth place mention that she thought the slick rock beat up her feet a lot, and my feet absolutely got beat up. I don't know if it was from the slick rock, but there was a good combination of slick rock, kind of sandiness, regular dirt, rockiness. But overall, like, the course was really cool. So I was kind of also just feeding off of like enjoying where I was and what I was traversing. But anyways, about mile 35 or so, we got out on the western rim of the Colorado River and it started to sprinkle a little bit. And I learned this from reading a blog from Kelly Wolf when she did CCC, that she got stuck on one of the major climbs at the top of it on CCC, and she was so frozen that she couldn't eat, she couldn't get her gloves out, she couldn't do anything. And she said, when it starts raining, you got to put your jacket on immediately. So it started sprinkling very lightly, and I'm like, I don't know what it's going to turn into, but I think I'm going to stop and put my jacket on. So I did. I stopped, put my jacket on. I also wore these fingerless gloves because I was like, if I fall, I want to be able to just bomb down, whatever. If I fall, I need protection. Graham had beat up his hands. So I was like, I'm going to do the Tara Dower thing and wear fingerless, like, they were like weightlifting
Yeah.
gloves. Um, so anyways, I had that on my hands, but I put my jacket on, and I'm really glad I did, because about 5 or 10 minutes later, it started absolutely pouring. Wind gusts, like, I don't know what they were, but they felt like they were about 30 or 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. We're on the rim, completely exposed. Sideways rain that turned into a little bit of hail. And I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. Like, but this is, I don't know, after a spring afternoon in
Are you
Colorado.
solo at this point? You're deep in the
I was
race. You're in the top, 20 or 30 runners overall in the race. You got to be spaced out, right?
Yeah, we were pretty spaced out. I did see one guy actually in front of me, and so I kind of kept tabs on him. But I put my jacket on, put my hood on, was having to put my head down so my hat wouldn't blow off, and kind of just powered through it. And it kind of was, fun in a way. There's also some big lightning. There's thunder and lightning. And I was kind of thinking to myself, when do you hunker down? What, is anything risky or whatever? And that girl that got fifth, actually, we were talking, and she's deathly afraid of lightning. And she said that she sat under a bush for 30 minutes crying because she was so scared of this lightning. I'm like, oh, poor girl, like, that's so bad. So, anyways, we ran in that for probably 30 to 45 minutes, and I got fully soaked. I mean, thank God for this Solomon Bonatti rain jacket, because it's the same one I wore at CCC, and it kept me warm. And then it eventually subsided, but there were a lot of slower miles in there that I think would not have been that slow, because you were just going into a full on headwind and just trying to, like, not get blown off the side of the cliff.
Wow. So when it lightened up, what mile were you at that point then? So you're at like
So
mile like 43,
45.
45.
Yeah, something like that, 45-ish, 42, 43, 45. It also created some mud. So that mud out there, and Ryan Sullivan had told me this. He's like, if it rains, that mud is nasty. It sticks to your shoes, cakes up. It's not. It's like it's really like, I don't know. It doesn't drain very well up there. So there was some mud afterwards. It wasn't horrible, but it was definitely like getting, weighing down my shoes and stuff like that. And then eventually it subsided. I think it had stopped raining for 2 or 3 miles before then I took my jacket back off, but I did. And then yeah. And then it was great weather until after the race, which was a whole other story that immediately after the race, we were trying to get to the car and had an absolute complete meltdown because another massive, like microcell thunderstorm came in and we were getting pelted with hail. And I was trying to get to the car and I was crying because I couldn't move very fast. And Stowe is trying to protect my legs, and he got all these welts on the back of his arm. It was like this huge disaster afterwards, but I'm glad that didn't happen when we were running the race. So
Plenty of people were still running when that happened.
I know, and I feel for them. But anyways, so I get back into the second aid, and before that, I had called Graham and said, "Hey, I need my legs rubbed down, and that is like number one priority, and I need to take some more salt because I was wondering if maybe I was cramping because of low salt." So they were ready for me. I got back in there. They rubbed my legs down, and at this point, I'm like, "Am I fourth?" They're like, my dad's like, "I think you're second." I'm like, "No, I'm not second, Dad. I definitely know I'm not second." But I'm like, "I'm pretty sure I'm fourth." So it was all good. I was like, "Okay, you're doing fine. Just keep going. Just keep going." So I leave that aid station. My legs feel a little bit better. And maybe a quarter as I'm leaving that aid station, one of the workers, and I know this woman, but I cannot think of her name. I know her. So thank you for telling me this. She looks at me and she goes, "Sandy just got moving." So she just got moving. You can catch her. And a quarter of a mile to a half a mile up the dirt road, I look up and I see somebody walking, and it was Sandy.
Oh, man.
And she was still in her jacket, kind of bundled up, just walking. And as I passed her, I'm like, "Are you doing okay, Sandy?" And she's like, "Just a day." And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." I was like, "You're awesome." It's just like, it's such a bummer to see that. And I was surprised because I didn't know I was that close to her, and then I don't know exactly what happened with her, but I was thinking to myself, I hope she keeps going, but I was pretty sure I'd moved into third, and then a little bit further up the road, I saw Devin Yanko, and I think she was waiting maybe for Sandy again, and Devin was like, "Good job, Corinne." I was like, "Yeah, let's go," and then Sandy did end up going back to that aid station and dropping,
Yeah.
which is such a bummer, but it's like anything can happen and I've never really had that experience, of like get to the 50-mile mark and then move into the position that you're really hoping to be in. So that was kind of new for me, but it was definitely like, okay. I was like, wow, it's actually coming to fruition here. I've moved into the spot that I'm in, and now I just got to try to hang on to it and hope that my legs and body and mind all like stay in it.
Well, and that's the thing when we don't have a live stream, so we can't really see what people are doing. So we're dot watching and trying to interpret how good people are doing based on how well they completed the last little section. And
Yeah.
me looking at it, it was like, man, Sandy and even that Tay were like running really well. And the gaps were kind of consistent all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find out that you were in third until much, much later. You were almost finished with the race before it seemed evident that you had moved into that position and that Sandy was a confirmed DNF at like mile 50. So it is just always interesting, right? Because you're just propagating this information based on watching a little dot. But
Yeah.
yeah, at that point where you're at, are you like, okay, just keep doing what you're doing? What you're doing is working. Just keep doing what you're doing and stay consistent to the finish. Because at this point, you still probably have 10 to 12 miles left.
Yeah, and shout out to Zach Hauer, who who told us on the pod that
Yes.
has yet to be released, will be released soon. He told us afterwards that if you have legs, you can run that last 10K pretty well, and or last 10 miles. And so we were on a dirt road, and it was just ever so slightly gradual downhill, and I was starting to my legs were okay. They were not cramping anymore. They still were a little sore, but I really intentionally shortened my cadence to try to take some strain off of my hamstrings
Yeah.
or shorten my stride, I should say, quicken my cadence, shorten my stride, which I'm very bad at doing, but I tried to do it, and that it seemed to alleviate the pain a little bit. And so I actually had some pretty good miles in there, like low 9 minute, kind of pace at the end. And I was like, that's that's solid. Like I knew, if I ran a 9:30 overall pace for this whole race, that was going to get me my time I wanted. And so, of course, early on there were some mid sevens, and then on the climbs there were some 10s and 11s, but I was like everything evening out, like try to stay within that like 9 to 10 minute kind of
Yeah.
pace here, which I was doing. And so I was encouraged by that. And then it started to go kind of gradually uphill. And then, and then it went back downhill. But I was thinking to myself, oh man, this is awesome. This is all I have for the rest of the race. All I have to do is run on this road till we get all the way back to the finish line. Little did I know that was not the case. And there was a very, very gnarly, like 3 to 5 miles where you actually go back on what you came up at the beginning of the race, but you go down it. There's also a climb in there, but it is extremely rocky. Somewhere in this section, probably mile 53, 54, I feel something in my shoe, on my foot, that I am like, what just happened? And it felt like something burst and there was fluid in my sock. And I did not know. I'm like, either a blister just popped or my toenail is floating in my sock right now, because there was just a bunch of liquid that just came from somewhere. And it feels a little like my pinky toe is floating in there. It did. I just went with it. I just rolled with it. It was a big, big blister that popped. It's actually not that bad after the fact, but it was really weird feeling during it. Then about mile 57, I decided that I was no longer going to trust the gas that I had, and I thought I needed to stop and go to the bathroom. So I ducked under a tree that was off on the side and proceeded to experience diarrhea.
It's 5 miles left. Oh no.
There's 5 miles left. Thank God I had a butt wipe in my pack. So it wasn't that disgusting. I didn't have to try to wipe with leaves or anything. I was okay. But we're just going to be very, very real on the Ultra Uncovered podcast. When I put my underwear back on, I know some people like, why are you wearing underwear? Whatever, I wear underwear. When I put it back on, it was kind of twisted. I ended up getting a cut underneath my area that is extremely sore, that these things happen. I thought it was really bad chafing, but yeah. So that happened at mile 57. And at that point, I actually thought to myself, you know what? I think I might be oversalted, because I had just been pushing the salt to try to get rid of this cramping. And, one telltale sign of being oversalted is having diarrhea. So I decided to back off on the salt at that point and just try to, continue sipping on like my water. I had open fuel in my bottles, and that tasted really good the whole time. It worked great for me. So, and gels, and just kind of stick with that.
Wow, this is turning into an unhinged episode.
Well, there's a lot that happens in these races, man. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. And then my feet kind of got so painful that toward the end there were a couple of miles that I was just crawling, because I could not run downhill. The second that my feet hit the front of my shoes, like it was excruciating pain. And so I was moving very gingerly down that technical section at the end. And I looked back at Emily Mann ran this race the year that Lottie got first, she got second. I was like, man, how did other people do in this section? And everybody was slow in those miles.
Yeah. Yep.
They're just, and it made me feel a little bit better that like everybody's going through it.
At the
And then
time,
it
you
just
think
went,
like, man, I'm going so slow. People are going to catch me. What's going on? But then you look
yeah.
back and everyone is struggling at that time.
And that's where I had called Graham again and asked him, I said, what's going on behind me?
Yeah.
Like, can you tell me what's going on behind me? And he's like, the tracker's still messed up, but from what I can tell, I think you have about 25 minutes on the next woman. So don't worry. Don't freak out. Just try not to walk. Just move as quickly or, as well as you can. But I think you're okay. Like, you don't need to press. And then he also told me there's no catching the top two.
The top two are gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did is I just decided to like try not to fall, just stay where I was and try to just hold that. And then I got to the last aid station and I thought I had about 3 miles. And I said, how far till the end? And they said 4.5 miles. And I wanted to kill myself. watch says 60 on it. What the heck is going on here? This is so brutal.
It's so mean.
It is so mean. It is so mean. But then I decided to take a fun video when I did have 5K left and shout out Andy Glaze and tell him, your mom can run a 5K. And that was just, I think that was just evidence of me, like, even though it sucked and it was bad, I was, able to just stay positive during that and just know that the end was close.
Well, and that might be your answer to this question, but I am curious, beyond your resulting time and your finish placement, what's one thing that you're really proud of about this race?
I think that I'm pretty proud of kind of my steadiness, like, and that means multiple things, like my steadiness within my mind of like staying even and not getting too up or down during the race emotionally, my steadiness of pacing and kind of trusting, running sections faster when I felt like it and I felt good, and being okay and not judging when I had slow miles, and then just like steadiness in the aid stations of, being having a sense of urgency but not being flustered or not being, like, yeah, grumpy or high maintenance, and just like being nice to everybody helping me. And then I think just, yeah, just kind of showing up as an athlete racing as who I want to be within the community and the sport.
Yeah. And so talk to me, was there any like fun moments other than the little exchange with Heather where you both said like, yes, we're both doing UTMB? Was there any of the other little fun exchanges with the other women on the podium or anybody else at the finish line?
So the finish line was special because I got to run in with Stowe and Dash.
Yeah.
They ran in with me. There's some great pictures. And I loved seeing them. And then I kind of, like I now basically have two teenagers and they just give me a lot of crap and rage bait me all the time, which is like the new thing to do. So I feel like I gave it back to him a little bit, and I didn't rage bait him, but when I saw Dash at the finish, I'm like, Dash, shh, shh, Bison strong in the hallways, which is their thing they'd say at school. And he's been doing it to me at home. Like anytime, like, I don't know, anytime he wants to just jab me, he's like, Mom, Bison strong, Bison strong. And so I saw him and I'm thinking to myself, that's what I'm going to do to Dash when I see him. I'm going to be like, Dash, Bison strong, keep it down, keep it down. You're going to go to the principal's office. So that was kind of fun. And that was a pretty cool moment. And then, yeah, I mean, just I like this race a lot. Like, I think it's underrated, and it's been around for 25 years.
Yeah.
It's actually very old. And so I do think one benefit sometimes of these UTMB acquisitions is that they bring light to some cool races that maybe people would not have gone and experienced otherwise. And so I think that is kind of this, like, this benefit is that you get, like, maybe more people will go run desert rats and see this really unique part of Colorado where it's like kind of deserty. You go into Moab at one point. You actually run into Moab.
You go into Utah?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You're on the rim, and you're or not Utah, not Moab, but yeah, you run into Utah for a short portion. Like, the terrain is really cool and unique, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy the course, actually.
That's great to hear. And we talk about that, about the UTMB acquisitions and how do we feel about this, but it's great to hear that an event like Desert Rats has maintained some of its local feel, and the people that are there in Fruita and in Grand Junction are still really proud of putting on a great, great class event, and that UTMB is additive to
Yeah.
that environment and not a detriment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. So it's good.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to put a pin in it. I think we could go into later, maybe on another episode where we deep dive, talk about some of the recovery and some of the coming off of a race like this. But I want to really dive into that conversation. I think that this is a great spot to put the pin in the download of the race. I'm really proud of you. Congratulations
Thanks.
on
Thank
putting
you.
together an amazing race, and I'm excited for what this means for the rest of your season. And going and getting that other qualifier in Chamonix for the big race in Silverton.
Yeah. No, thank you. And yeah, we ran lots of miles leading up to this. And yeah, I think, yeah, you helped as well in also giving me this bit of a pep talk ahead of time, via text. Like, even if you're sick, you're in good shape, you're fit. And I really appreciate that because all those things played into helping me have a good day. So.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
to everybody out there, right, this whole sport is just a journey of ups and downs, whether it's within a race, within a training cycle, within years and years. And so, I had a couple of races, even though Javelina went decently, and from a performance standpoint, I didn't feel super engaged during that race. And then Black Canyon, I ended up dropping halfway. And so I think, that's just a lesson in like stick with it, and things tend to come back around. And even if you haven't had a great race for a little while, don't stop. Just keep showing up, and you never know kind of when you're gonna have a good one.
oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, until the next time, this is Ultra Uncovered. So for Corinne Shalvoy, I'm Russell Ditsworth signing off.